is CORDIScovery. Hello and welcome to this episode of CORDIScovery with me, Abigail Acton. You, dear listener, are likely to be living in a city. About 3/4 of the population in the EU are urbanites. Are you living in an inclusive area with parks and public spaces you and the other local residents have had a say in designing? Or is that something that seems out of your reach? Maybe your experience of city life is less comfortable. By 2050, approximately 80% of Europe's population is projected to be urban. And given the concentrated population and infrastructure, cities are especially vulnerable to environmental stresses. We've already seen the impact of pollution, both noise and emissions, heat waves, flash floods, and soil contamination. Global temperature change will exacerbate these issues. The impact on biodiversity and the consumption of natural resources are also reasons for why it's time to rethink our approach to urban development and planning, to create greener cities that are more equitable and cohesive. So how can that be done? Nature-based solutions, or NBS, co-creation, living labs, what do these terms mean and why are they important? Let's turn to our 3 guests today, all of whom have received support from EU science funding. Darko Ferčej is head of the EU project unit within the Slovenian non-profit institute E-zavod. His area of interest is in transforming policy theories into practical changes that benefit people's lives in urban environments. Welcome, Darko.
Thank you, Abigail.
Laura Fregolent is Professor of Urban Planning at the University of Venice in Italy. Over the years, she has investigated the processes of urban transformation and sprawl and the social impact of housing dynamics. Welcome, Laura.
Good morning.
Gonzalo Canto-Moniz is a professor of architecture and a researcher at the Centre for Social Studies at the University of Coimbra in Portugal. He is fascinated by the way that co-creation of nature-based solutions within our cities can promote more inclusive urban neighbourhoods. Hello, Gonzalo.
Hello, Abigail.
Hi, good to have you here. Darko, I'm going to turn to you first. The Upsurge project wants to make cities of tomorrow places of environmental regeneration, and you're leading the way on what can be done through a series of real-life demonstrations. The term nature-based solutions, Darko, crops up quite frequently, but can we pin down what we actually mean by that expression?
Yes. Basically, these are anything which is in the city and it looks green. It could be green trees, it could be parks, it could be green strips along the road, but it could be also something less usual. For example, green roofs, maybe green facades, maybe some water plants. And this all contributes to better quality of air and quality of water, and also better quality of life. It also improves the beautifulness of the cities. But sometimes this could be also something usable, something eatable, for example, gardens, or even like balcony gardens, which you could have it in your home.
Lovely. Okay, that's super. It sounds like a great idea, but presumably there are barriers to being able to just turn as much as we possibly can green. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges of greening our cities?
Yes. We have overcome some challenges, for example, technical ones. This was a challenge of the Belfast city in the UK. They, for example, wanted to install the urban gardens, firstly on the ground, but they found out that the area was polluted in the past, and that's why they had to use the raised gardens.
Oh, okay. So there was a problem with the soil?
There was a problem with the soil, yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Another problem another issue was also in the city of the Katowice. They wanted to build the green walls on the hospital. And later they found out that this green wall would do too much shade for the doctors working inside. And they had to abandon this idea and then moved more to the bus stops. So they greened the bus stops instead.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the cities that you're involved with in your project? Because I know that you're actually trying to do practical demonstrations of how these things can improve people's lives. And maybe you could also tell us a little bit about any local feedback or any kind of comments that you're receiving from residents.
Yeah. So we are focusing here on 5 cities. Belfast from the UK, and then Breda from the Netherlands. We have Budapest from Hungary. We also have Katowice from Poland and Maribor from Slovenia. And in all these cities, they had different investments in the greenery or nature-based solutions. For example, in Maribor, they have improved one of the streams, so it was water related, and then they built around more than 100 trees to make the area more attractive to the local citizens, and people now can walk around this area, which they couldn't do before. For example, in Budapest, they had a big problem with the rainwater in the summer. So they built the rain gardens. These are equipped with special types of the plants, which then in the case of heavy rain, they improve the weather in the case that water goes into the ground and that there is no flooding anymore.
So they improved drainage.
Yeah, they improved drainage, exactly. And for example, in Breda, in Netherlands, they are focusing more on the people area, so they build a green parking area and also some green facades and some recreational parks, which are now more green than they were before.
When you say a green parking area, I mean, those great big car parks, they're obviously ugly, and sometimes even maybe in the evening one feels a little insecure crossing them if you're the only person, and they're not the most beautiful things in our cities. So what did they do to make the car park greener? How did that work?
They can plant the trees. They can also dedicate some area to the green grass, which was before parking. Of course, you can lose some parking spaces, and this could also mean some resistance from the local area or the local residents. But at the end, the whole area is more beautiful and probably also more safer.
Yeah, and also better for nature, I guess, for biodiversity as well.
For the nature and also for us, because we are part of the nature.
Yeah, indeed. Any other examples you want to share?
In Katowice, for example, they have focusing on the bus stops. So before they were very concrete looking one, and they had this heat problem. And of course, when people are waiting on the bus, they don't want to be, in the big heat. So they made it very green. So they made green roofs on these bus stops, and also green surrounding of the bus stops. So they were able to cool down the area, and they are also monitoring it in all cities. We are monitoring the air quality and also the temperature.
And how are you monitoring? Because I know that in some ways you're monitoring in ways that are not typical, because we use sensors in our cities already. But I think you've got some other ideas about how to monitor.
So besides the sensors, we are using also the bees.
Bees, wow, yeah.
We are using the pollen of the bees. Very small quantities of the pollen is then analyzed. And after the analysis, we can find out if there are any pollutants in the area, and also if there are any invasive species which do not belong to the area.
Aha, so it's not just to see whether the plants are being contaminated by pollution, but it also gives you an idea. When you say invasive species, you mean invasive plants?
Exactly.
Right, that's interesting. What a great idea. Okay, Darko, there's a lot of work going on these various, as you call them, living labs. So, I mean, the term is pretty self-explanatory in these cities. Did you find that you're getting much feedback from local residents? Are people saying that they are liking? You've mentioned a little bit about the problem with reducing the number of parking spaces to make things better, visually and environmentally. Are you getting much pushback from residents, or are people actually saying to you that they really appreciate the changes that are going on?
Yes, basically, if the people are asked, they are happy to answer. So people generally like to be involved in decision making. Just many times the policymakers are not hearing them. So we are using this Living Lab approach to ask people what they want, and based on their will, we are also making the investments.
Right.
So we are doing what people are keen to do.
Right, which of course I guess then also means that the solutions are more respected and more cared for by local residents, because they've had a part in deciding the changes they want.
Exactly. This is the main aim of the involvement of the people. So if they are part of the decision, they also like the decision more because it is their decision.
That's right. There's some ownership. Thank you for explaining the work. That's fascinating. Did you have any problems encouraging local communities to participate?
Yes, sometimes there are also the problems there because we have focusing on very different types of the communities. We have focused on the elderly, on the children, But in some cases, in Breda, they focused also on the migrant women. And there are some challenges, especially how to approach to them and how to get their opinion.
Right. So there's some sort of cultural sensitivities around actually trying to include everybody.
Yes, exactly. So if there are different cultures, you have to be very careful also to respect their culture and to ask the right questions and also to approach to the right way and the right time. They had to be very careful. So they have established different informational points, and they had to wait that the women approach them.
Right, indeed. Okay. And has that been happening? Is it working?
Yes, of course it is working. Just it maybe takes a little bit more time. And also we have to have, the right type of the persons who are engaging. So if you're engaging a migrant woman, then you also have to have the women who are engaging with them.
Right. Excellent. That's an interesting point. It's easy to say that we need everybody to participate, but different groups need to be approached in different ways. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Laura, I'm going to turn to you because actually your work a little bit overlaps with what we've just been discussing. The Neighbour Change Project considered how new urban planning approaches can encourage social cohesion. So what's the problem with the current approaches we have to urban planning, please, Laura, and regeneration? Why isn't what we're doing now working so well?
Well, in a few words, I think that top-down solution without interaction with people is a problem. Many European public institutions have been exploring ways to involve communities in urban planning processes through participatory solution and tools in different way, different tools of planning and of participation. But even if community-based initiatives offer a very huge, a broader range of skills and experience beyond the usual experts, because we are more familiar with the experts instead of common people, instead of community. The most vulnerable groups, and particularly the poorest group and the ethnic minorities, for example, face barriers to participation. And in a Neighbour Change research project, we try to explore the possibility of a more inclusive governance at the local level in particular, because this is the level that we explore in particular, even if with taking in account the different levels of governance. But local governance was our point of research.
Excellent. So may I ask you, when you say you were looking at different ways to involve local communities, and here we touch a little bit on what Darko was saying, for example, in Breda, where they were trying to involve encourage the input from migrant women. In your case, can you give me some examples actually of the kind of communication you're talking about with local residents from groups who might be more vulnerable? Can you give some examples of what you're mentioning here?
It's a participatory process. Are sometimes difficult and require a lot of energy. And so also for that, usually are not so common in process in general, in policy process in general, and in urban planning too. And example of communities at different level, but also, for example, committee and association involved in question connected with territorial transformation that could be involved in the process to modify, for example, the design for modify the project of land, of territory, of the city or of the neighborhood, of course.
And has that happened effectively in, I know that you're based in Venice, but in Venice or around Venice, can you think of some examples where neighborhoods have been changed, but with the consultation with local residents?
Well, For example, in Venice, not properly involved, but there is a strong, very strong involvement of citizens in committee and association, for example, against tourists.
Yes, which is a huge problem for you. Yeah.
Take tourism, not tourists, not
no, sure. Yeah.
Against people, but against the phenomenon.
Yeah.
And we can say that we have some results. No, not yet. But there is a discussion with the institution, and the institution at a different level. And so, let me say, we are in a process, and the process never ended.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just wondering whether you can see some cases in Venice or in the area around, because I know you're also interested in the notion of urban sprawl, where the voices of people were heard and something changed. But can you tell me a little bit then also about the notion of co-creation? Because that is what we're talking about here. Tell me what does co-creation mean? And how is it happening in Venice?
Well, co-creation means collaboration, means to, as I said before, not a top-down decision, but a bottom-up process. And so politician or the expert can suggest, can have an idea, can propose an idea, but have to build the concept with the community and with the different people involved, the different actors, the different stakeholders involved too.
Yeah.
This is, I think, the way to work.
Right, absolutely. Did you notice that there was some reluctance from planning authorities and from local municipalities to get involved with the decision-making process with the local residents?
Well, local authorities try to solve the question or using the tools that they know better. And the tools that they know better is I decide and you try to implement. You community, you professional practitioners, and so I think it's a cultural process that we have to put on the table.
Yeah,
we have to work about that and try to involve more. Also, the administration, the politician, because. In this research project, the main topic was the innovation of governance and how the institution may learn from the experience and may learn from the community.
And finally, what did you find? I mean, what would be the one key takeaway from your project, do you think?
Well, in a certain way, the idea that this is possible. In a slogan, citizen can make a difference.
And I hope that they're accepting that concept. As you say, it's an ongoing process, huh?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you very much. That's very interesting. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Laura? Yeah, Gonzalo.
Hi, Laura. Yeah, I'm very interested in your research. And I have some questions that, of course, they come also from our experience. One is related about this working with the people, so developing other urban planning ways of doing. Did you find also a challenge on the tools that usually architects and urban planners use? Did you have to try to find other ways of doing it? So that's one question, and the other question is related to the inclusive governance model. Usually I use co-governance. I don't know if this is familiar to you. We have also this technical difference, but I don't know. But someone that I found very interesting in this process is the technicians of the municipality. So we have the elected people, but we have the municipal technicians that in fact are the ones that are in the ground.
Can you give me some example, Gonzalo, of the kind of technicians that you're talking about? What sort of area? You mean like people who are responsible for putting in water pipes, or?
Yeah, the people that work in the municipality, at the urbanism department, at the environmental department, at the educational department, so the technicians, the staff of the municipality, that usually they have a different position from the elected people, and sometimes they are allies, other times they are not. What did you find about this?
Thank you, Gonzalo, for your question and suggestion too. Co-govern, it's difficult. It's difficult because, as you very well explained, there are different level, technical level. There is a problem also of knowledge from the community, for example, of a technical project, technical knowledge from the community, because some knowledge is part of some parts of the institution, and usually you are not at the same level of knowledge. No, this is a problem, and for that, for example, the community has to be helped, has to be supported by experts, by urban planner that have to have a different role, have to try to be involved in the process in different way. About the tools, also that is a very important question, because we have to find other tools. In particular, thinking about the tools of planning that we use, but really we have to work about the inclusion.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, indeed. So it's partly getting people's voices heard, but first of all, those voices have to be raised. In other words, you have to have those voices in the first place if you're going to talk about how to then have those voices heard, indeed. And again, we go back to Darko's comments earlier about the right way to approach certain groups and to be sensitive to their reactions. Thank you very much. Gonzalo, I'm going to turn to you now. Urbanat, your project, focuses on the regeneration and integration of deprived social housing urban developments through an innovative and inclusive catalogue, I could say, really, range of nature-based solutions. And we now know what that means. Thank you very much, Darko. So, Gonzalo, nature-based solutions have been frequently considered from the environmental science aspect. Now, I know that your project was interested in approaching the concept from a social science direction. Does it matter? Is there such a big difference? Can you explain?
Thank you, Abigail. Yeah, I think it tries to bring another dimension to nature-based solutions. That was our challenge with Urbinat project, and it was welcomed by the Commission, being proposed by a social science institute. So the idea was to understand how the nature-based solutions could be, of course, focus on the green dimension, on the environmental dimension, but also combine it with the social one. Let's say that we need to have green, as Darko explained very well, but we have also to have blue and maybe red, our blood, in these solutions. So that's what we try to push with our project, and it was very interesting because many times when we approach the communities, they said, "Okay, we know that you are going to do very well designed green infrastructures, but we want to understand how we are going to use and how we are going to take advantage of it." So, and this really made a difference in our project that we developed also in several cities, where people try to always link the green, the nature, with the social dimension, with social activities that can have an educational approach or cultural or whatever.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Can you give us some examples of that then? I know you use the term living labs as well. So tell me a little bit about the idea of taking these concepts and actually putting them on the ground and making them work.
Yeah, we challenge the communities to think about not green corridors, but healthy corridors. So these healthy corridors was a way of try to approach the social dimension, putting the focus on the impact. So all the solutions, they are always designed thinking about the impact they will have on people's life.
What's a healthy corridor? What is this?
In fact, it's an open concept because it was interpreted by the different communities in their own way, but it tries to develop a cluster of NBS, a cluster of solutions that need to work together. And this is very important because nature-based solutions, usually they don't work by itself. They need to be understood as a cluster, and they always try to combine the green dimension with the social one. For instance, of course, we need urban gardens, but what can we do with the urban gardens? We can have a community kitchen, we can have a social market, and this works in a circle, so we produce, we share, social markets we share, or we sell with fair prices, and then we eat together.
Can you give me some examples of that? Because I think that you mentioned in a previous conversation we had how that helps social inclusion with minority groups. Can you tell me about that, please?
Yeah, this is very important because when we challenge people to participate and to co-create, we in fact challenge them to be involved in a long process where they identify the needs, they design the solutions, they implement, and they monitor. So it means that they are involved in these projects in the case of Urbinat, for 6 years, and this is quite a challenge. So they need to be motivated. They need to understand that they will win not only direct profits, as they will have access for better vegetables, for instance, but they will also be part of a community. And many times, for instance, in these social markets, people don't sell almost anything, but they are there because they want to be part of the community. They want to build something together. They want to belong to these neighborhoods that, in our case, they were social housing neighborhoods, so they were deprived in this sense. There was a lack of justice, of inequalities, but they have a strong sense of belonging. So they want to be part of this community, and they want the community to grow and to face their challenge, their social challenge together. And they see nature as an opportunity to make this change.
Lovely. And I believe you mentioned that obviously people come with their own strengths. So I think you mentioned one time that there was a lady who used to come regularly who was very good at cooking. Can you tell me about that story?
Yes, these ladies that they are in fact the power of these communities. We see women. We have also a beautiful story because we had a revolution in Portugal in '74, and we always say that the revolution was made by women. So the men were at the war in the colonial times, and women were fighting for their houses. And this is very strong in Portuguese communities, but we see it across the world. So women, they really want to change their neighborhood more than men, in fact. And this is very interesting. So when they come to participate in this process, they bring their knowledge, and they want to share their knowledge. So there is a kind of generosity also with the community. So this idea of cooking is very strong when we have participatory dynamics along this process. So cooking is becoming a way of engaging people and being part of a transformative process.
Yeah, and also brings in, I would imagine, the migrant community. As you mentioned to me in an earlier conversation, you have a lady who comes and cooks regularly at one of these green garden markets that you were saying, offering her skills and her culture to other people. I think it's a wonderful story.
Yes. People in these community events, and when we are working in social housing areas, usually we have people with different backgrounds, with different origins. Cooking is a way of bringing that culture to the events, to share also the culture and the way of talking about their roots and make their roots present in the community.
Yeah, wonderful. So social cohesion, big, yeah.
Yeah. And the living labs that you mentioned, they are very important because, in fact, we always understood labs as an academic structure. So the idea of the living labs is moving this academic structure to the communities. So it's in fact a way of creating a laboratory in the community that will not only work in these projects that, in the case of Urbinat, but they are empowered to understand how they can develop future projects together. So it's very important because in these living labs that we activate, we establish connections, for instance, with the municipality. So there are contact points with the university, with the municipality, with companies. So these kind of relations, networks, they stay in the community and they are activated in the future project. So this is the big challenge of the living labs, is to empower communities to design, to co-create new solutions after the projects leave, because this is always a challenge. When we leave the communities, what stays there? And this idea of the living lab, I think it's the most powerful one. It's a challenge, but it's the most powerful one.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. You explained that really well, Gonçalo. I appreciate that. And the work you're doing is so interesting. There were lots of other ideas as well as the gardens. I know that you were involved in green amphitheatres and pedestrian bridges that link areas together in ways that were previously, hard to navigate across large roads and all the rest of it. Just making our cities better places in which to live. Thank you for that. Does anyone have any questions for Gonçalo? Yeah, Darko, what would you like to ask?
Yes, thank you. I think that our projects are quite similar. And I was wondering, you were also mentioning before, what do you think how you and also us could approach these living labs to live also after the project life? So how could we engage people after the project has ended?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. In fact, it's related with the co-governance model that I was exploring a little bit with Laura, because the co-governance model that we tried to develop, it was based on a structure of working groups. So very early in the project, we established these working groups, and these working groups that are thematically related, according to the people's wish, they start to create relations between them, and they not only develop proposals for Urbinat, but they start to develop other proposals, and in fact they made other applications because they want the projects to continue. So they start to apply for instance, participatory budget at the municipalities. They start to apply for national finance for NGOs projects. So in fact, these working groups, when the project leaves, they continue to work together. In fact, most of them, they are activated by different NGOs that sometimes they say the big thing of Urbinat was to put us working together, because we knew that we exist, we were in the same territory, but we didn't work together, and now we work together. So they always say that this is already a win. And what we see is after the project ended, because the project ended last year, we see that they are still working together to continue developing, for instance, this social market. It's still going on, but they are now involved in other projects together. People, for instance, NGOs that are related with healthcare, others that are related with urban gardens or cultural activities. Now they are doing their projects, and this is, I think, it means that the lab is alive.
The living lab is living. That's excellent. Thank you so much, all of you, for your wonderful work and interesting insights, both from the practical element through to the theory and then back again to the practical. Much, much appreciated. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Abigail.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abigail.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Take care. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Goodbye to all.
Goodbye.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and check out the podcast homepage on the Cordis website. Subscribe to make sure the hottest research in EU-funded science isn't passing you by. And if you're enjoying listening, why not spread the word? We've talked about the latest technology to reduce the risk of fires on roll-on, roll-off ferries and the skin patch that can test for TB. In our last 49 episodes, there'll be something there to tweak your curiosity. Perhaps you want to know what other EU-funded projects are doing to improve the quality of life in our cities. The Cordis website will give you an insight into the results of projects funded by Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe that are working in this area. Maybe you're involved in a project or would like to apply for funding. Take a look at what others are doing in your domain. So come and check out the research that's revealing what makes our world tick. We're always happy to hear from you. Drop us a line. editorial@cordis.europa.eu. Until next time.